Afternoon, and welcome to our Public Safety Committee hearing today, which we will review the 2025 liquor objections list from City Attorney Zach Klein's office. I'm Councilmember Emmanuel V, Chair of the Public Safety and Criminal Justice Committee, and I'd like to thank my colleague, Councilmember Otto Beatty, for joining us this afternoon as we run through the list. Just as a reminder, this hearing is currently live on YouTube and Facebook, and it's also live and being recorded for rebroadcast on CTV, Columbus's government television channel 3. So a few years ago, this hearing was included in a regular meeting for council. And when I became chair of the committee, we decided to pull this out as a standalone a standalone hearing, because we want to make sure that we're using the best use of everybody's time, and certainly wanted to give the opportunity for those that wanted to do it, to object to this withdrawal, to have the moment to testify. So very pleased with where we're at. I think we're excited to hear the city attorney, Assistant City Attorney Sophie Yano for what you've done this year. I think what I want to do is commend you for the work that you do leading up to this. And certainly Detective Ryan, thank you so much for all the work that you guys do throughout the year. I know you'll explain it a little bit more in your presentation, but the fact that we have 6 today, it could have been a lot more. And certainly the community would have, not be as well off as they are today because of the agreements you made before this hearing. So without further ado, I will turn it over to Assistant City Attorney Sophie Yano for the presentation. And thank you for Detective Ryan for being here today.
All right, good morning. Good afternoon. I'm Assistant City Attorney with the City of Columbus. Sophie Yano, I work for City Attorney Zach Klein's office. I work in a team called the Property Action Team. I'm here with Detective Mark Ryan, who spends his year working with me on all of our liquor permitted establishments in the city. If we can go to the first slide. So our Property Action Team is a section of the City Attorney's Office that is specifically designed to target problem properties within the city. We have 6 police zones within the city, so we have an attorney assigned to each one. When I'm not doing liquor things, I'm assigned to the east side. We also have kind of separate groups designed to target specific types of properties. So obviously we're here for liquor. That is my kind of special interest in our office. We also have one for big environmental issues. Those are mostly engineering properties, big machinery compounds and things like that. We have kind of a smaller group designed to address tobacco issues, which overlaps with us quite a bit, short-term rentals, whatnot. So we really try to do our best to address the issues that are plaguing our communities the most. The design of our team is so that we are on the ground in our communities and the areas that we serve to make sure that we know what's going on, what is causing a problem for the community members, for the patrol officers. We go to every area commission meeting. We go to roll call meetings. We really try to do our best to make sure we know what's going on. With that, we also rely on the community to reach out to us and let us know what's going on with them. We work very closely with community liaison officers who, are very quick to tell us when, a bar is spiraling out of control or a place is selling tobacco illegally. And we really try to do our best throughout the year to address those issues. We can go to the next slide. So our permit process for liquor permits, we're here once a year to talk about the renewals. This process, while we are here once a year, it happens all year round. So it's 8 big steps. So we have identifying the establishments, investigating them, evaluating, the activity that's happening there. Then we do what we're doing today, which is I come to council and say, here, based on everything we've done all year, here's what we're recommending for moving into the next year. After that, for the places that we object to, the Division of Liquor Control will hold a public hearing where we will go against the owners of the permit to kind of explain why we believe they should not have a permit anymore, and they have the opportunity there in front of the division to present any evidence of progress they've made or things that they've done in the meantime. Once that hearing is over, the division will issue their decision. And then there's a whole appeals process after that. So if their permit is revoked, they still have the opportunity to appeal that decision as far as they can. So it is a long process, and I will go kind of deeper into each of them. So the next slide, so the vast majority of our year is spent doing the identification, investigation, and evaluation stage. So we work in a group called the Liquor Nuisance Abatement Group. So that is comprised of city and state entities, including the Ohio Investigative Unit, Columbus Police, Columbus Fire Department, Public Health, Code Enforcement, at times the lottery officials, pretty much anyone who could have an interest in these liquor permitted properties. We meet once a month to talk about all the places that have come onto our radar or updates that have happened at places that have already been on our radar. And then we will go out once a month to do inspections, surprise inspections throughout the city. So we do inspections for all corner stores, markets, things like that have more carry-out focus, and we'll do inspections in the evening for our bars. It is one way that we kind of check in on places throughout the year, but while I go to a number of places every year, Detective Ryan goes to many, many more than that. So we have some big group inspections as well as smaller inspections. All of those get back to us, and we are able to, throughout the year, compile a list of places that need to be put on our watch list, places that require immediate engagement, and sometimes places that require immediate action. What we will look at is liquor violations at the property. So we're talking underage sales, we're talking illegal liquor sales. If you don't have a permit, we look at for narcotics use, sales, distribution, high levels of crime, high levels of calls for service or 911 calls to the property, overdoses, crimes involving people using alcohol, health code violations, fire code violations. We really try to look at the full picture of this property to see where we can best use our resources. During that process, we also reach out to the owners. So we will obviously, if we're doing an inspection, we'll talk to anybody working there. We will let them know what violations we're seeing, what issues we're seeing, and why, we came to begin with. If violent activity has happened, more often than not, Detective Ryan will also send a letter to them, to the business owners and the property owners, letting them know of the activity that's happening on their property, because some business owners might not know, and we certainly do not want to penalize people for activity they don't know about. However, if it's happening on your property, you should know about it, and you should be taking measures to address it so that our communities are staying safe. And we also work with all sorts of, as I've already mentioned, the area commissions, the block watches, civic associations, to make sure that if there are people coming to their community leaders to tell them about places that are problems, they're getting to us as well. So we spend all year kind of investigating everyone, and then we get to the point where we need to make our recommendations to City Council regarding who, of all the many people who have liquor permits in the city of Columbus, we do not believe deserve to have them for the following year. So this year we looked at over 200 properties that had come onto our watch list one way or another. We looked at their number of calls for service, number of police reports taken at the property, health code violations, anything that had come to us throughout the course of the year. From those 200 places, we had about 50 that warranted an extra look. So for those top 50 places, we read through every 911 call to the property, every police report to the property, to make sure that if we are coming before council to recommend that people not have a liquor permit going into next year, we can tie a substantial portion, if not all of the activity happening at their property, to something that they are actively doing to make conditions worse or avoiding in a way that is harmful to the community. This way, we're not penalizing people for merely being near problem activity, but we're penalizing people for being a host of it. Once we have our list, obviously this year that is a list of 6 places throughout the city, which I'll go into more detail on. We come here to present those objections to City Council. We will still keep talking to business owners, especially if they are big businesses that we have worked with in the past or we have a contact for. We will make sure they're aware of the situation, aware of, what we think needs to be done to course correct. And sometimes we are able to avoid coming here for that, and many times we're not. So between when we request the objection and when the Division of Liquor Control issues their decision, these businesses can still operate as if they have their liquor permit uncontested. It is not until after that decision is made that that liquor permit would then be stripped and they would lose their ability to serve alcohol. At that point, there are multiple outcomes that come from these liquor objections. If it goes to a full hearing, we will either have the objection sustained or overruled. If it's sustained, their liquor permit's removed. If it's overruled, their liquor permit will continue with them. We have had people in the past forfeit their liquor permit if they, are abandoning their lease or for some other reason have decided to no longer serve. But most often, we will come to an agreement with the permit holder to get them under certain operating provisions that we have found, based on our many, many years of doing this work, tend to course correct. Those outcomes and those agreements will be entered into an environmental court case before Judge Stephanie Mingo, and we can control and monitor compliance with those agreements for a period of time afterwards to make sure that the measures that we're putting in place are actually effective in addressing the issues that we're seeing. So there are multiple different types of liquor permits. For our purposes, we deal primarily with C permits and D permits. C permits are our carryout permits. So most gas stations, markets will have these carryout only permits, which allow for alcohol to be taken out of the property, but not drunk on the property. We also have D permits, and with the exception of the D6, those are all dine-in. D6 is a little bit special because it is a Sunday permit. So we will also see gas stations that have that Sunday permit that allows them to have Sunday sales. All of the D permits are dine-in permits, so that's what our our bars, our restaurants, they all have those D permits. So moving into our objections for this year, I'm going to go one by one. Our first objection for this year, that is not the correct one. Yep, these appear to be last year's. So I will just go through everything and we can correct this after the fact. Yes, no longer operating. So our first renewal objection for this year is Speedway, which is 1165 South High Street. They have a C1, C2, and D6 permit. This is also a repeat offender that we're dealing with. So we objected to them back in 2023. We were able to resolve that objection with an agreement that was memorialized in an environmental court case. Unfortunately, we have not seen a turnaround in the activity there. We have attempt to engage with the property owners, and they do not seem to be at this time willing to make the changes necessary. But this property came to us this year as one of the locations with the highest calls for service volume citywide. Upon looking into the calls and reports, we discovered a number of violent offenses, including multiple assaults and robberies, as well as a drug-related offense. They've had between 2024, January of 2024, and beginning of November of 2025, they had over 560 calls for service to the property, which is a very, very large number. Moving on to our second objection, this is actually this was a place that we had objected to last year, and we have not yet had a hearing. So that location is the Shell or True North Energy at 2441 Lockbourne Road. They are the owners of a C1, C2, and D6 permit. This place we objected to last year, the primary objection was, again, for having a very, very high calls for service volume. We have not seen any decrease in that in the past year. We do have a liquor control hearing set for December 18th, but as that's not happened yet, we're obviously here today recommending the renewal of that objection. We have also seen that the number of calls for service that occurred between the 2023-2024 period and the 2024-2025 period have increased by about 150 calls, going from 228 calls in that 2-year time period to 366 calls in the 2024-2025 period, which is a pretty dramatic escalation to an already problematic location. We see weapons offenses happening there, and other violent issues that greatly concern both the city and the residents in that area. Our next location is 2800 Sullivan Avenue, which is a BP gas station. This again came onto our radar due to a high calls for service volume. Upon looking into the police activity at the property, there have been many issues, including citations for solicitation, underage sales, assaults, and shots fired. Additionally, Columbus Public Health has multiple outstanding violations for safe and sanitary conditions. And taken all together, this paints the picture of a property that is negatively impacting its community and that is not taking the necessary steps to do even the bare minimum operations to create a good environment for their community. Turning to the next objection, we have the Marathon located at 2805 West Broad Street. They have a C1 permit. This property has been on the city's watch list for about a year and a half, and a review of the police activity this year showed multiple assaults and robberies, 8 events including intoxicated individuals, and 3 occurrences of a Narcan administration indicating some sort of overdose at the property. Columbus Division of Fire also has multiple outstanding violations, and the combination of these violent attacks, drug use, and fire code violations are very, very concerning, especially considering this property is a gas station, so fire code violations are obviously very, very treacherous for the surrounding area. Our second to last is going to be the Speedway located at 2875 Stelzer Road. They have a C1, C2, and D6 permit. And again, this property came onto our radar due to a high calls for service volume. We found that multiple assaults, robberies, shootings, armed robberies, and drug overdoses had happened at the property. And both Columbus Public Health and Columbus Division of Fire have outstanding violations at the property. So again, it paints a picture of a business that is not doing the bare minimum to address the issues at their property. And our final objection recommendation for this year is the Buckeye Supermarket located at 4432 Walford Street. They have a C1, C2, and D6 permit. This came onto our radar in early 2025 due to reports of violent attacks on apparently customers perpetuated by representatives of the store. looking into this property, we discovered that it had one of the highest numbers of concerning reports that were taken, police reports that were taken at the property, including overdoses, felony assaults, liquor law offenses, weapons offenses. And Columbus Police have also received tips regarding narcotic sales at the property. The overwhelming quantity of violent events at this property creates a substantial risk to the surrounding community, especially considering the business's alleged complicity or involvement in these activities. So a pretty short and sweet list this year, but I'm happy to take any questions you have.
Thank you very much for your work in this. Can you speak to the lower number of objections this year? I mean, I have my theories, but that's because of the work you guys do beforehand, but I'll let you answer that.
Absolutely. So it's kind of twofold. One, we are seeing that crime across the city has decreased this year, which is wonderful for, for our community. That does not mean crime has stopped by any means, but we do, as I mentioned, a substantial amount of work on the front end to address issues at places, especially if we're talking about shootings, homicides. Those are more likely to come to our attention, the Monday after it happened, rather than us finding, overdoses and things like that at the end of the year. So we do a lot of outreach, a lot of kind of proactive work during the year, and we have been able to get multiple of the places that maybe potentially would have been on this list under court orders that have been successful earlier on in the year.
I know you talked about the process, you talked about some of the, the different things that you do along the way, but could you speak to the lack of, sometimes contact with the owner, they're not responding, I think a lot of people on this list, for instance, is that you, Detective Ryan? Yeah, I'll let you do.
I don't want to steal the question from Luciano, but I will. But I can answer that because I've developed a relationship with a lot of these shop owners. And in this particular case, when it applies to carryouts, the owner is there in the shop. And it's almost always family owned. Aside from Duke and Duchess, BP, Sheetz, corporate partners in Columbus, those are family owned institutions. Really are. They've been around for years. And I'm looking at these case files over here, there's only 2 that are on the west side. Last year there were a lot more. And I pull in, they know who I am, and a lot of this is not a surprise to them, okay? So I show up and issue a lot of positive reinforcement. So when you have 4 or 5 overdoses in your parking lot, when you have called the police 40, 50 times, they know something's wrong. So they have to do a little bit of everything. That's cameras, that's lighting. Instead of being open until 3 in the morning, close at 2 in the morning. Is it worth it to deal with some of the things that you're dealing with? So some of the things that we put in place for them help them out. So the difference between this year and last year, there's always more carryouts. Carryouts are open 24/7, some of them. And it's the only place of concern, if she's talking about the community, it's the only place where a kid can go and buy a honey bun and a pop and see a meth pipe for sale in a counter. Or they can see other paraphernalia. So when you have those things happen, can anybody pull in there and expect, they should really expect that they're going to be safe going into a safe environment, whether you're sending your kid to the store for milk or you're an adult that goes there to get gas. You should have a reasonable expectation that you're going to be safe. I look at some of these addresses, I pull these myself, and I'm like, I know I would drive by some of these places, definitely. If I were to, I'd go somewhere else to get gas. So a lot of things that we do, we try to encourage them, and we try to get them out of the process, really. Said, hey, if you get a security guard, this would help this. If you stop selling that, because that pipe you sell, they don't take it home. They use it in your parking lot, and they fight over it, or they overdose from it, from the use of it. So there goes that. So a lot of this is a years-long process of me going in and out of these markets. I've been in most of them on Sullivan Avenue and West Broad. And there's so many that I'll drive by one I'm like, I've never even seen before. So we're always listening to the community, and we're always responding, but there's a lot of proactivity on my part. If I've dealt with one and I'm driving by, I'll pop right in and check, how you doing? And if they have a court order, I'll check it right there in the spot. So we keep tabs on them, and I'm going to tell you this, part of the process we're involved with today, right now, has had positive effect. So some of these places I haven't gone back to. We have not heard the complaints from the community. So I want to share that with you, and you know, this process is long, and a look back is 2 years. It's not a week, it's 2 years. So they get tired of it, the customers get tired of it, the police don't like it, our mayor doesn't like it, right? So, and neither do you. So we're always trying to partner with them before they have to show up in a hearing on the 15th floor.
So that's a lot of the carryouts that have individual owners. What happens with like a Speedway or a Shell True North? And there you don't necessarily have the context. Do you typically talk to the manager, or, you know, like what's
Talk to the manager. Those letters go right to the corporate. Quick response, but there's a lot of stores, and sometimes you have a South High Speedway that has generated so many runs that the answers are going to be things that they don't like to hear. They don't want to spend money on security. I understand that. They maybe don't want to close earlier, and those are just suggestions, not a mandate unless we're under a court order. But they respond like Sheets. We deal with their security people, UDF, good responses there. But so the contacts are there to be made, and they're done over emails and phone calls more, not in person, as we would deal with some of these markets here that are individually owned by families. So.
Councilmember Beatty?
Yeah, just real quickly to Ms. Yano. What are the cross streets for that speedway on South High? I know there's several speedways on South High, so what?
I'm thinking that's around Green Lawn. I can Google it, but I'm pretty sure the 1100 block it's going to be just south of downtown.
Okay.
So that puts it around there. I'm pretty
Yeah, that's
sure.
the one that's behind the White Castles.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. All right.
So I hope that answered your question. That was a big ball of wax from me, but
Yeah. And lastly, you talk about the consulting you do as far as like a security plan for those establishments when you know there's a problem. I mean, you're the one that's telling them, look, you need lights here, here, and here, and cameras there and there. Is that correct?
yeah. So some of the ideas that I come up with, and this is stuff is really kind of reinforced. They kind of know. So a lot of carryouts now, especially in the west side, east side, they do their own security. They share a security company, and they will go around to different carryouts. Pretty unique, saves money, and they're always there. And so they come up with their own ideas. We have one market owner, and 4 or 5 or 6 on East Livingston. He's kind of done his own. He's gone to each one of these carryouts. Hey, if we all agree to not sell certain things, we do certain things, share the security, we're all going to be better off. Kind of a unique idea. And so a lot of my suggestions for that particular question would venture over to the bars. So a lot of the bars, especially between Broad and High, Lane and High, that whole stretch, Short North campus, it comes down to, well, how many do you need? Are they uniformed? Are they plainclothes? Armed, unarmed, licensed, unlicensed? Are they bouncers? What are they? And some security companies can really aggravate a problem, okay? So some security guards carry rifles, and they're not allowed to do that. And we have to correct that, obviously. So that is some of the things that is built into running a bar. Everybody knows bouncers, but not everybody knows that there are bars in this city that have 10 or 11 security guards. And I ask them, why do you need that many? And they know we're here to prevent crime. So good for them. So that's a way to keep Sophie and myself away and keep them off the 15th floor, keep them away from a binder at city council hearings. So a lot of those guys respond well. And they don't want it, they don't want the problems either. So, but some of them don't respond as well, and here we are, so.
I'll just add to that briefly that, Columbus loves our business owners that, open up shop. As, Detective Ryan has said, many of these are small businesses, and it is not our intention, nor our desire to force people out of business. The last thing the city needs is more vacant buildings. And when we approach our conversations with them, we always approach saying, if we are here, it's because your business is unsafe, and that doesn't just mean for your community members, it means for your employees, it means for yourself. We have unfortunately seen shop owners killed in their own establishments, So our entire purpose in doing this is to make sure that we are prioritizing safety, and that doesn't always have to be at the detriment of the businesses. We have seen businesses who have taken our advice, taken Detective Ryan's recommendations, followed their court orders to a T, and really turned their business around, that are seeing, more sales than they have in the past, that, maybe originally they were hesitant to stop selling single-serve alcohol or stop selling, tobacco or different things, or remove the drug paraphernalia from their windows. But as they see those things go away, they see the problems on their properties go away, which means, as Detective Ryan said, people are more willing to stop by when they need gas or when they need a bottle of water while on the road. Our goal is not shutting down businesses. Our goal is making sure that they're safe, which is also part of the reason we do have a shorter list this year. We really want to reserve this process for places we don't see turning in the right direction. Our goal is that by doing this, we can have kind of a wake-up moment to say, changes need to be made, safety precautions need to be taken, and hopefully a year from now, all of these businesses will be in a much better place.
Yeah, I want to add to that real quick. We boarded up 2 bars this year, 2 illegal bars, okay? Last year, 2 bars as well. So this isn't as, you talk to a business owner or a parcel owner, and it's almost like, well, we're draconian, we're going to board you up. No, it's a process. It's a long one, too. And so if you think of it that way, how many bars are in, it's like I heard it was like 8,000 permitted places in Franklin County, something like that. That's a lot. So we boarded up 2 illegal places, but beyond that, with the permit, it comes with visits and contacts, meetings, status conferences galore, really. And so we're trying to bring them along because we don't want to board up stuff. That's sales tax. That's, payroll tax. That's the things that generate revenue for the city and for them. And again, it's a lot of positive encouragement. It's like, hey, just keep on going. You're going in the right direction. And hopefully we won't see you again. And so again, I check in a lot, but by and large, we do our due diligence because we want to be challenged. We want to do it right. We don't want to do it quick, and sometimes we do. And an illegal bar is illegal, and we're going to do that quickly, especially when there's violence. So I would say we don't even do it quickly enough at times. There's so many event centers now, and there's so many issues with that, and that's a whole nother conversation. But anyway, this is a long process, but it requires a lot of due diligence on Ms. Yano and the property action team and the bar owners, parcel owners. Everybody's involved here in the community at large. So.
Well, thank you for your robust work in this space. Keeps these hearings short, and we certainly want to keep good businesses open and make sure that we're taking care of the ones that fail to comply and fail to take the necessary steps to run a safer establishment in the city of Columbus. So we did not receive any requests to speak, and we also did not receive any written testimony this evening. So I'd like to end the hearing by once again thanking our presenter tonight, Assistant City Attorney Sophie Yano, for your participation and great work all throughout the year. Detective Ryan, all the work that you do on the streets, thank you again for that and being here this evening. We expect to see these liquor objections in front of council on this coming Monday, December 15th. So thank you to my council team, Nancy Pryor-Sully, Pedro Mejia, Dr. Tanisha Pruitt, the communications team, and to CTV team for their assistance in preparing for today's hearing. I'd like to thank my colleague Otto Beatty for showing up this evening and attending. And I also want to thank the community for their support and for tuning in to today's hearing. Thank you, everybody. Stay safe and stay warm and have a great rest of your day. Thank you.